Hi, and welcome to the gwEm. I'm gwEm. So it's been a while since I've really done a video where I talk to you. Things have been pretty busy this end. Basically, I've been working on loads of new material. I have the Electro album live from Cyberspace 2, which I'm going to talk about today. There is an Amiga Rave album coming out in a few weeks. I've got a whole bunch of Atari ST chiptunes which are done, and I have another Electro EP that I'm working on. You know, I reach more people with these videos. I have way more followers on YouTube than my other social media and my Bandcamp. But I have to say, in my heart, I am a musician. I'm not really a video producer. And I think you can see that from these videos, which are usually quite technical, and I don't put that much effort into editing. I'm not a big fan of video editing. But anyway, last week I released an album live from Cyberspace 2, which was kind of a jam-based album. It was a live album. I put it together for an event in Birmingham, organised by the Birmingham Modular Organisation. A good friend of mine, Leon Chromatouch, is a member of that organisation. He's been trying to get me to perform there for a little while. So I took him up on the offer and put together a set. And I decided that I quite liked it, and I polished it into the album which you heard last week and is available on my Bandcamp too. I'm sure you all want to know how that works. It was a rack of some modular gear, a little sampler, and also my Korg SQ-64 sequencer. So let's get into it, and feel free to ask questions in the comments and stuff like that. And here already is one of the things I find most annoying about Eurorack is all these wires everywhere. They really get in the way of making adjustments. Let's just go through all the modules and how they're patched. The first module is this, the M303 from acidlab.de. It's a very close, I think, 303 sound module. Three connections to the M303. The mod output of the SQ-64 is connected to the accent. The pitch output connected to the CV in. The gate output connected to the gate in. And we have a few other connections. This is an input to set the filter cutoff. It's being modulated via this Doepfer LFO module. So this has 4 low frequency oscillators, and I've got one of them patched in here. The output is connected into this next module, which is from PH Modular, and it is the drive module. Now this can get quite raucous, but I have it set to an extremely subtle drive. You can barely hear that it's overdriven actually. But if I crank it, you'll definitely be able to hear it. And the output of the overdrive goes all the way to the other side. It goes into this module, which is from Happy Nerding, and it is a mute module, and I use this for the performance. I'll explain that in a little bit. Comes out the mute module into this Happy Nerding effects aid, which I'm absolutely delighted with. It's a multi-effects module, and I've got it set up for 2 independent delay effects. That's without delay, and then with. Delay works so well with acid sounds. Then the output of that goes into this Erica Synths mixer here. This is mounted upside down so I can access it due to the hundreds of wires. This is their drum mixer light, and I really like it. It's got Vactrol compressor built in, and I did try using an external compressor instead of using this one. I don't know, I just kind of felt this sounded just that little bit nicer. It has these little switches here, like an effects send basically, and I've got that going into this 2 HP reverb unit. And I think there's something cool about the reverb. It gives it an 80s flavor. The output of the mixer goes into this final module, which is a Pico out 3, and that's already taken you through quite a bit of the signal chain. Let's do the next sound now. That is this thing here. This is a Doepfer A-111-6 miniature synth voice, and I absolutely love this thing. I have a slightly strange relationship with Eurorack in that, as you can see from all my content, it's all highly sequenced. I'm only slightly interested by the experimental side of Eurorack. For me, having like a powerful synth voice in a small size that's really affordable is like extremely appealing, and it's great to have something by Doepfer, who invented the Eurorack standard. This is a single oscillator monosynth, although it does have a sub oscillator. The bass sound, it has some of that sub oscillator. It's a square wave bass with a bit of pulse width modulation. The pulse width modulation comes from this LFO, the same one that I use with the M303. This is a Doepfer LFO A145-4. I've then got a couple of modules that I haven't actually used in the gem. I've got the second VCO just to give an extra oscillator for the Doepfer voice, but I didn't use that. Then I've got an ADSR envelope, which I didn't use either. The intention of that is to use it with the Pico voice, but we'll get on to that. The output of the miniature synth voice goes into this mute module as well, and then it goes out the mute module straight into the mixer. A lot of people actually asked me about the SID sound, the arcade sound, the chiptune sound. The arpeggio actually comes from the Korg SQ-64 itself. This is patched into this little 3 HP module. It's an Erica Synths Pico voice. This is like amazing again what it can do in the size. It's got 8 different modes. What I'm using is the pulse width modulation mode, and with the arpeggio from the SQ-64 it sounds incredibly chiptune. There is again some modulation coming from these LFOs. If I just disconnect the modulation a second. You just have a normal square wave, but with the LFO you get that really cool SID sound. That comes out the Pico voice into the mute. Then it goes into the second half of the delay unit. It goes into the mixer, where it has reverb added to it and out. The drums are all using this Endorphin's Black Noir, which is a CR78 inspired drum synth really. So you've got a bunch of different voices. I'll just go through them all. Bass drum, snare, tambourine, close hi-hat, open hi-hat, metal beat, and cymbal. I like it because it's an alternative to the 808. I adore my 808 and I adore the 808 sounds, but this just has a different flavor. It's still very electro. The last 2 centimeters of the Endorphins module is an effects unit, so it's got reverbs and choruses. I have it set to a plate reverb, just very simply. That's applied to all the voices except for the bass drum, which has not got reverb applied. So the bass drum output goes separately into the mute module, then into the mixer. all the voices except for kick drum go not using the mute module, they go straight into the mixer on its own. Which brings me on to how do I mute and unmute the drums. Pretty straightforward, how I mute and unmute the bass drum. I'm literally just unmuting and unmuting the audio with this button here. But with the other drums, I took a different approach each time. With the snare drum, I don't actually mute the audio because I wanted the audio to go through the reverb. If you cut off a sound, including the reverb, it just sounds weird. It's good to have that reverb tail for a bit of smoothness. So what I do with the snare, I mute the trigger. So the snare trigger coming out of this is what I'm muting and unmuting. So the snare trigger comes out of the SQ-64, it goes into the mute module, and then it goes into the Black Noir. And I took exactly the same approach for the metal beat sound. I'm muting the triggers. All the other percussion sounds, I couldn't possibly mute and unmute all of them. I don't have enough space for all those mute modules. So what I'm using is the velocity input, these red wires here, of the Black Noir. When I mute them, it cuts the velocity to 0 volts and you can't hear those sounds. That's the tambourine and the hi-hats. When it's unmuted, this is getting 10 volts, and the 10 volt signal is just coming from one of the unused mod outputs of the SQ-64. With the SQ-64, I was switching 16 different patterns over the half hour of the jam. Now the mute page of the SQ-64 isn't the same page as the pattern switching, and I didn't want to have to switch pages mid-performance. And also, as you've probably seen in one of my other videos, there are bugs with the mutes on the SQ-64, so I didn't really want to trust muting and unmuting on the SQ-64, so I thought, okay, well, I'll mute externally, and I saw Happy Nerding have these mute modules, but they're not the most reliable of things. Sometimes just like then you'll tap it and it doesn't toggle. Just like then, like 1 in 5 times. You really have to press them kind of head on, and it helps if you hold them for a moment. But even then, you see that one sprang back on. What I like about them is the buttons are nice and big, and they're illuminated, which is great. And they're push buttons, which is good too. I guess it does introduce like a random element into the performance. Finally, let's talk about the SU10. So I thought it would be cool to have some different samples in the track. Output of the SU10 is actually going into the auxiliary input of the Black Noir. The reason I've done that is the level of this SU10 is lower than Eurorack level, so the volume would be too low, it would get lost in the mix. Also, I can apply reverb on the Black Noir. So basically, overall, it's a really good solution being able to patch this straight in there. So I'm really happy about that aux-in feature. The sounds are mostly all sampled from the 0D J File Volume 1. I do have a couple of other sounds in there which I got from YouTube, like the dub horn and the Darth Vader. But yeah, 90% of the sounds are from the 0G data file. I'm really happy with all of these modules. Slight question marks about the usability of these mute switches. I do have reservations about the SQ-64, but you've seen my video about that. Despite having so many firmware bugs, is extremely powerful and easy to use sequencer. It's got all these beautiful outputs for Eurorack. It would be great if they came out with a version 2 of this, which was completely reliable. There you see again. Well, I hope you found that interesting. Maybe there'll be 1 or 2 more videos now. And yeah, if you keep an eye out for my new releases, that would be awesome too. But obviously that's entirely up to you. Best place to follow me is probably Twitter, but like I'm also on Bandcamp and Mastodon and Instagram and TikTok. Anyway, thanks for watching. Leave a like and maybe subscribe, and yeah, hope to see you again soon. Take care.